Done.
Who gets this?
We do. I'll take it.
I didn't do anything to it because I didn't know her well enough to do it.
Okay.
I like her, but I didn't want to lie about anything.
Let's get the meeting started. Call the meeting to order. Those that care to, please stand for an opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Cameron, would you lead us in prayer?
I will.
Thank you,
Heavenly
sir.
Father, we just thank you for this day. And thank you for this this community. Thank you for the privilege, Lord, that you allow us to serve and be a part of it. I pray, Lord, that you would just guide and direct us in all that we do and all that we say. Give us wisdom and direction as we lead and guide the city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's your microphone. Put her on rip, please.
Well, thank you very much for being here tonight. I joked earlier before we went on the record about seeing if we can remember it. I guarantee you I'm going to mess up a couple of times, so I'm going to ask for your forgiveness in advance. I'd like to start off with citizen participation. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to something that is not on the agenda? Please approach the podium and you will be given 3 minutes to speak on that issue. Look, we have to get Jared's permission before we start. No, it's Andrew's permission, right? You were the one in charge of the thermostat.
Yeah, I don't.
This is going to go bad. It's going to be a freezer in a few seconds.
It'll be 70, but it's not 87.
All right. Any citizens wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close citizen participation. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Do any council members have any questions about items number 1 through 4 on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Moving on to boards, commissions, and committee schedules. We have a Board of Adjustments meeting on February 2nd, 2023, a City Council meeting on February 7th and February 21st, and a Planning and Zoning meeting on February 13th, 2023. Moving on to old business and tabled items. This is item number 5 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 22-63 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving a developer agreement with Stone Creek Developments, LLC.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brickner presented on this last time. Hopefully we had our chance to ask questions. Any updates from the city?
No updates.
Any discussion or questions from council? Seeing none, I now would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 22-63.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. We will now take a roll call vote. Are we doing them on our computers? Excellent. It's working again?
It is.
Good deal. So we are going to click refresh on our screens, then cast the vote, and then hit submit vote. Ordinance passes 8-0. Moving on to item number 6 on our agenda, I need a motion and a second for the reading of Bill 22-64 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving execution of an intergovernmental agreement with City Utilities of Springfield, Missouri to deliver electric service to the Brookline South Lift Station.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from the city?
No updates.
Any questions or discussion from council? Mr. Self.
So City Utilities is the only utility company up on that side, correct?
In that location,
And,
yes.
and they've been good to deal with throughout, yep, okay, great.
Any other questions to follow that up? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 22-64.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Laura, did you get those?
Did.
Perfect. We will take a roll call vote. Please click refresh.
Do we need to move her screen closer?
She can reach it.
It looks pretty far.
And hit submit your vote. Ordinance passes 8-0. Moving on to item number 7 on our agenda. They're throwing me a curveball after my time off, so let's see how this goes. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 22-65 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving budget amendment number 2 to the budget for the fiscal year 2022.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Keeling.
Thank you, Mayor. Jared Keeling, Assistant City Administrator. When we presented the first read for the budget amendment, we were doing our best guess for expenditures for the remainder of the 2022 year. As you can imagine, with a lot of large projects in the hopper, sometimes timeliness of bills for specifically architectural and engineering services are tough to guesstimate. So since we had the first reading, I can't remember, December 4th, 7th, whatever it was, we did incur some additional invoices and bills in 2022 for architectural and engineering services. I do want to go over them just in detail. So on the Parks and Rec side, engineering services, architectural services for expansion of the Republic Aquatic Center, we're increasing expenditures by $355,000. On the SIS fund side, architectural engineering services for J.R. Martin Park improvements and trail improvements. And then on the grant fund side, architectural engineering services for wastewater improvements. Back up to the SIS fund, that is being amended by additional expenditures of $199,000. And on the grant fund, additional expenditures in the amount of $150,000.
Do we have questions from council on these issues? So if I understand correctly, you are requesting a motion to amend the ordinance by striking out the expenditures in Parks and Rec's SIST fund and grant fund and adding the new numbers in the proposed ordinance. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. Thank you.
I would entertain a motion and a second to that regard.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor in amending the ordinance as requested by city? Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so it has been amended. Now I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. So I need a motion
Motion.
Second.
and a second as amended. And now we will take a roll call vote. You see, not as smooth as I usually am. I'm a little disappointed in myself. I mean, it could have been better. So let's do a roll call vote on our computers, guys. Click refresh. Submit your vote. And hit, there you go. Ordinance carries 8-0. Moving on to new business, this is item number 8 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 23-01 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving the final plat of the Westbury Gardens Phase 2 subdivision.
Mr. Tabor, you're here to get me back on track, right?
We'll see.
Let's do it.
Chris Tabor, Principal Planner. The second phase of Westbury Gardens would create 62 new residential lots on 14.4 acres of land. The final plat includes dedication of right-of-way, utility, and stormwater easements. If approved, the city would be taking in 2,255 feet of street and 2,175 feet of sidewalk. City staff has determined that the final plat conforms to the requirements of the preliminary plat approved by City Council on July 21st, 2020, as well as all related municipal ordinances. Staff recommends approval of Westbury Gardens Phase 2 final plat.
Questions from council? Seeing none, please remember this is a first read, so if you have any questions, get with staff before the next meeting. Moving on to item number 9 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the first read of Bill 23-02 by title only, please.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Did what? All right. Motion carries 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving the final plat of the Wilson's Creek Villas subdivision.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Tabor.
The final plat of Wilson's Creek Villas will create 6 new residential lots on 9.2 acres. The final plat includes the dedication of right-of-way, utility, and stormwater easements. If approved, the city would be taking in 340 feet of street and 300 feet of sidewalk associated with East Timber Oak Street. The final plat also includes 1,100 feet of street and 1,800 feet of sidewalk that will remain private along the newly built Blake Avenue. Wilson's Creek Villa is a planned development district, or PDD, and was passed in 2019 as the 12 Stones Planned Development District. This PDD allows for 4.1 dwelling units per acre, which comes to about 37 dwelling units for the property. City staff has determined that the final plat conforms to the requirements of the development plan approved by City Council on July 9th, 2019, as well as related municipal ordinances. Staff recommends the approval of Wilson's Creek Villa's final plat.
Thank you, sir. Questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, I've just got a general question.
Mr. Franklin.
Did this already go before planning and
Can
zoning
you open that?
previously?
So this went when it was a PDD back in 2019.
In
So it's been a while, but a PDD back when the PDD was passed, then PDDs did not expire. So this could have popped up at any time. So no preliminary plat was required, and final plats don't go before PZ.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, please remember this is a first read. You have time to get with staff with any questions before the next reading. Moving on to other business, specifically resolutions. This is item number 10 on our agenda. This is 23-R-02, a resolution of the City Council authorizing the city administrator to retain an outside consulting firm to assist with the recruitment, selection, and post-offer process for the finance director and finance manager positions. I need a motion and a second to take up resolution 23-R-02, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to pretty much cover the next two agenda items because the next one is a similar resolution, just to keep them clear and consistent with what we're working on. But we posted the finance director position back in November and the finance manager at the same time. Also, we've been looking for a city engineer for several months. And so those efforts in the recruitment process in our area have not yielded very many applicants, basically, that we would feel that would be qualified or that we could secure for the positions. I will tell you that even soliciting an outside selection firm to go to a nationwide search, if you look on their websites, the finance director positions and the finance manager positions are some of the most sought after positions in the U.S. right now. So the process does guarantee us or provide us a level of candidates that we'll be able to select from. But no disrespect to the candidates we've interviewed, but finding the right fit for this position, we have been unsuccessful to this point. We have not really received any additional resumes that would fit the desired direction where we're looking to go with the city. And so we're asking to actually hire someone to go out and utilize I think it's Baker Tilly, well-known research group that looks for a lot of executive positions. And we're going to be bringing both the finance director and finance manager positions for consideration. What we would do logistically is we would solicit for the finance director position first. Once we had a pool of candidates, then we would repost the finance manager, because we'd ideally like to have a finance director on staff to hire the finance manager. So it is a very tough hiring pool right now. Finding people in the recruitment process for all positions is very difficult. You can read all the news reports and see that people are just not moving from their positions. And so it's gotten kind of crazy in the job market and what people are asking for and requesting in those jobs. So there's no guarantees with this, because we're not just looking for someone to fill the position. We're looking for the right fit. But we are asking your consideration for these executive postings, both 02 and 03, but we'll vote on one at a time. I'll take any questions.
Who's currently handling the finance stuff?
Great question. So we hired Larry Brown. He's been with the city. He's a outside finance manager, accountant. We've utilized him since 2016. And then Andrew became the ad hoc finance director with the work that Jared has always helped with the budgeting. So Jared Keeling, the assistant administrator, has always helped on those processes. We also have the two staff members that were already there that pretty much serve in the accounts payable, accounts receivable, internal controls, as well as our outside auditor. We have solicited their feedback. We always do, just to evaluate our internal processes to make sure there's no concerns with the protection of the community's funds. But right now it's an outside consultant, Jared, meeting in there two days a week, and Andrew is responsible for the payroll. So there has to be separation of duties so no one has control of the city's funds, and I have no access to the funds in my capacity.
Mr. Cameron, how does this company go about reaching out to individuals to fill this position?
They'll write a community profile,
Okay.
and they'll kind of talk about our community, talks about the culture, the background, the parks, why working in Republic, Missouri would be a great place to live, work, and play. And so they'll do that, post it on their website, and then they'll start kind of like what a lot of us get in our inbox. They'll start recruiting people from either existing jobs and maybe living somewhere out west, north, south, whatever. They would potentially say, I'm looking to relocate in that area. They will go looking for people that are in current jobs. I mean, we see it a lot from the same group. That's how we know them. Is there are a lot of recruiters out there looking to move people, but a lot of people are not just looking to move right now. But that's how they'll go about it, and then they'll select the most qualified candidates. The danger of using a recruiter is sometimes on the most qualified candidates when you're listing it like this is a requirement. Sometimes a combination of college education and experience. You'll take experience and maybe not the education to say if it's a combination of both. And sometimes they'll just cut it off saying they don't have the degree. So there's gonna have to be some real guidance that we provide to them saying, listen, we may consider less education and more on-job experience. And so we still have an involvement in the process, but it's hard when you lose some level of control because you like to kind of vet that, like, yeah, we may know the person or have some connection, but we've just not seen a lot of local success on this. And the engineering position is very difficult.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Cameron, so just so I'm clear, it's kind of an option between those three, and you're just waiting for that proposal to come back. Is there anything in particular that one of them could offer us better than the other one, or what's the thought on how do we determine which one of those is the best option after the proposals and pricing comes back?
I think that's just getting an allocation, and we'd make that determination based upon their qualification. But SGR and Baker Tilly, or even Gov HR, they're all fairly qualified. You'll see them at a lot of the trade shows. So all three of them are very reputable to deliver. I know the city of Republic has used Gov HR. They utilized that firm in the last city administration selection was Gov HR. And I'm very familiar with SGR. They're probably the most well-known. Baker Tilly is probably the one that I've seen is probably the most aggressive in contacting our own employees.
And then that's on a national. I mean, they're recruiting national.
Yes, this is not just going to be local.
I was just curiosity. Thank you.
I'd say they're all very busy right now. Getting a response back is very difficult from anybody.
Any other questions? Seeing none, and as this is a resolution, we can call it immediately for a vote, which is what I will do. All those in favor of Resolution 23-R-02, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution 23-R-02 passes. Moving on to item number 11. This is 23-R-03, a resolution of the City Council authorizing the city administrator to retain an outside consulting firm to assist with the recruitment, selection, and post-offer process for an engineer vacancy. I need a motion and a second to take up Resolution 23-R-03, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anything you want to add, Mr. Cameron?
No, this is just one that I believe is still subject to the department head. We wanted to get the approval and the authorization as we continue to work with the department to say, is there any other options? I know there was discussion today about a job fair in the summer or coming up in the spring where you have a lot of graduation time. And so when you have a lot of engineering graduates leaving school from the field into the field, and there's an opportunity there. I will say this, it is not a lack that we are not competitive in the wage. I know that we're actually more competitive in those aspects in some of the places such as, I hate to use it by name, but MoDOT and different places where we're competing for these jobs where we're putting a good product out there for them to come to work for, but it's just getting people to into the job. We landed a really good one the last time, an Angel, and he's done he was an Angel, he is an Angel, but but legitimately done a great job for us. And so I believe by being patient and bringing the right teammates into this ever-growing organization is imperative for us. So I appreciate that they're not just putting people in a warm body at the tasks that they have. But we'll see how this works out. That's one thing I would add is that this is still at the discretion. There's no guarantee that we'll actually utilize that firm. It's a wait and see, but we will report back to this council if and when we do use that. But we are asking for authorization to proceed as if we were doing it now.
Mr. Franklin.
Just one more question.
Yes.
So the 2025, I know that could vary. What happens if they do not find a candidate? Are they paid once they find a candidate, or are they paid?
Well, they're going to get paid for delivering so many qualified applicants that meet our qualifications. So their job is to bring us a qualified applicant. If we don't choose any one of those qualified applicants, we go back after it again. That's the same thing that we would do. Just because we get to a qualified applicant, we may find out it's still not the right fit. But
So that's to bring us the applicant.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is the pay scale for these openings be competitive in the area, or are we starting with a base then going from there?
they're very competitive in the area. The concern that we've been told from our consultant that's working on this, the ones that have responded back, that we are competitive, probably to a point where we're actually higher. The issue that you got to be careful of is that you start going to a level saying, listen, throw out an extra 20, like here, we'll just throw an extra 25,000 signing bonus. We don't do bonuses in Missouri. Then you run into compression issues with other employees that have been here for longer, saying, listen, I've been here for 10 years. Now you've just thrown an extra incentive out for them. What about the ones that have been here for a while? So you've got to stay within the range that they've provided us, or you've got to go back and say, listen, it might be just as easy to consult or add someone from the outside to oversee it for a while till the market comes back to a more reasonable and favorable position, because that's going to be that's what makes it the most difficult. They could demand a lot on the market, and it would actually exceed what you can pay or what you're paying your other executive positions.
Other questions? Seeing none, and as this is a resolution, we will call it immediately for a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 23-R-03, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. Moving on to item number 12 on our agenda. This is 23-R-04. Hey, what happened to -01? Ah, busted. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. 23-R-04, a resolution of the City Council appointing Assistant Builds Administrator Garrett Brigner as the city's director of the Southwest Missouri Joint Municipal Water Utility Commission, and Builds Administrator Karen Haynes as the city's alternate. I need a motion and a second to take up Resolution 23-R-04, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You know, the punishment for good work is more work.
More committees.
Mr. Brigner.
So this commission is part of the Tri-State Water Coalition. What they're trying to do is establish what will be the water supply for the region, not just ourselves, but like Nixa, Willard, Ozark, Joplin, Mount Vernon, for in the future. This plan is probably at least 20 years out, but what this commission that they're assembling allows us to do is start making decisions toward whatever that end goal is. Right now, they're looking at piping water from Stockton Lake down toward Springfield and then out toward Joplin. So anybody along that alignment, as long as you're at the table now, can be part of that connection. But you need to be a part now, or you can't join in later once this is already built. So this is kind of our seat at the table. They're taking the next step by forming this commission into decision making on how to actually start acquiring the easements and right of way excuse me, for that pipeline. So, yeah. Any questions?
Questions from council?
I
Yeah.
got one.
Mr. Wilson, we'll start with you.
Okay. You pump the water from Stockton, it comes through the pipeline, and say we get a pipe into Republic here. What's the next step in getting it purified
Sure.
and out to the citizens?
Yep. So that is a great question, and that is one of the things that this commission is going to work on. Is does Springfield treat it all and then pump out cleaned water, or is it all raw water that's pushed out, and then each community is responsible for purifying it themselves? Those are all questions that need to be answered.
Okay.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. You said they a few times, as in like they're bringing this coalition together.
Sure.
Who's
They is the Tri-State Water
Okay.
Commission, or Tri-State Water Association.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of players in that. The Greene County, Christian County, those other cities I mentioned earlier. So
Garrett, I remember, if I remember right, we were still debating on even joining this, right, the last time we talked about it?
Yeah.
Was that, what made us make the final jump to
So
join?
we have been a member of Tri-State for, I don't know if we've been in since the conception, but a long time now, since before I was here. Having that seat at the table allows us to make some of the decisions. This pipeline will go right through our backyard, so even though, so let me back up a second. Republic is in a really good position with our groundwater source, so that is the question, is do we even really need this? So, but we want to stay a part of it as long as we can, in case we do need it, or, yeah, just as we keep developing, we may need it someday. So we don't want to step away and say, no, we're not going to do that, and then look back in 15, 20 years and be like, dang, we should have stayed a
Kick
part of that.
ourselves. Financially, what does that look like, being a part of it?
Sure. So the dues every year is about $12,000. That's what we've paid to Tri-State. That's what we will now pay to be part of this. So and our Tri-State dues cover being a part of this commission. So it's not an additional $12,000. It's the same $12,000.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does us being at the table also put our current water source on the table for these other cities?
No.
Okay. I'm saying tribal
Yeah.
war, you know? I just want to make sure we're good.
Sure. Yeah. No, and there's some. We wouldn't do that. There's some other issues with mixing water sources like
Okay.
that anyway, so that's another thing to consider. But no.
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
I'm just going to add one point. I think you did a fantastic job. This is not to over-explain what you're saying. To say why we're a part of it, the future of these water districts, what typically happens is when they run it, if you do not become a member and you decide 30 years down the road, oops, we should have signed up, the cost to hook to that water system will be exponentially higher and there will be a penalty for it. So the reason for having that seat, so if they come along and say all 30 cities need to come up with $1 million to have your first connection, if you say, listen, cities will start to opt out saying we do not want to pay for that, then there'll be a penalty later on. So hanging on to identify what the cost is important. And so it's worth the money, but I think you did a fantastic job, Garrett.
If there are no other questions, we can call this immediately for a vote, which is what I will do. All those in favor of 23-R-04, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution carries 8-0. Moving on to reports from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the mayor and city council and all the staff. Last Thursday, we had the work session. We were there from 9 to 2 o'clock. And we discussed the priorities of the city, just discussed things that were moving forward. I appreciate your time, your investment time to fill out just the information that we requested. We got a lot of great feedback. We're looking forward to sharing that information. I think that we've talked about housing, we talked about rates, we've talked about communication, which you'll see in your packet tonight. One of the things that we're going to definitely do is increase the information that goes out into the administrator's report. Admittedly, I would say that is probably one of the places that we've probably lacked. I mentioned that before, talking about streets in 2022, that our communication efforts, we're going to improve them and work on them. I think the admin report, I think a lot of the feedback we've gotten from staff moving forward, our mindset for the community that would be watching this, you too, Mom, would be moving forward, turning inward. So how we would turn inward to the organization and look at our own processes and what can we do to improve and how can we communicate with the community better, how to glean feedback from the staff, how to glean feedback and priorities, because as we continue to grow as a community, understanding what those messages are and what we can improve on is critical, because the outside world and the development community have not slowed down and they're not going to slow down. And a lot of that is just based on geography of Republic. And so Republic is centered on around I-44, James River, you've got rail, you've got air, you've got all of this perfect storm, and you've got land. And so we have companies from all over the United States looking at this community to bring in more jobs, more opportunity. And a lot of it's just where it's geographically located. So making sure our processes in town are dealing with transportation, dealing with water, dealing with sewer, dealing with streets is important. So I appreciate the fact that we all came around that conversation. We are going to continue to build on that. We're going to do another work session next month where we'll talk about the results of the communications we had and where we collectively move forward. and where we put our resources into that. One of those is obviously you've seen we posted the position for the PIO position. That was a position that's been vacant since March. Jennifer Mayfield has handled that brilliantly for us, but the overwhelming message was we need more internal communication, external communication. The mayor himself will tell me we're very good at what we do. We're very terrible at telling people how we do it. And
That's not exactly what I said.
but I'm going to paraphrase how he said it. But he's right. We struggle with the messaging of what all is going on. And so with that, thank you for being at the meeting. Looking forward to having that. But with that message, along with that was not clearly articulated last June, we did receive $25 million from the state legislature. And we found out in the last omnibus bill that was passed at the last minute in Washington, D.C., that Republic also has $5 million in that bill. You'll remember that Andrew and I went to Washington asking for this $5 million, not sure if we would receive it. We did receive word from Congressman Long, former Congressman Long staff, that we did receive those funds. Last week, Andrew and I, after the joint work session, we did meet with leadership in the House, discussed it with the mayor shortly thereafter. He's been involved from the very beginning of all the discussions that we have when it comes to requesting additional funding from the state legislature. Our request has been made again. That conversation went very well with Representative Davison, Representative Riley, Representative Deaton. We are meeting with Representative Owen this week. And I know the mayor has had conversations with some of these as well. Senator Trent, Curtis Trent, we're going to be talking to him again. In fact, I was supposed to call him today. Anyway, but I will tell you that we work very, very hard on making sure we don't want to broadcast it as much, but trying to get the utility rate down to minimize the impact. But that wastewater train is coming. I mean, it's like we have got to work on that plant, and be it rulemaking, be it our growth, be it compliance, as hard as we were working behind the scenes, and all that is listed in this admin report for you tonight, of what we're working with our attorneys, working with the engineers, to find ways to prepare for the 20-year growth plan, but also to keep the city in compliance for those 20-year period, but also not just put that at the back of every ratepayer without some assistance from the state. And the state has stepped up, but we've got more work to do, and we'll continue to do that. But I just want to express my appreciation for the work that you did last Thursday, because even while we're asking for those funding, our focus is going to be turning inward towards the processes and the things that we need to be improving to deliver better results for the community, and to hear that better and to communicate that better. Because I think there's a lot of things we've been working on when it comes to transportation that we're just not communicating, and people are not aware that, like, we're going to be doing Oakwood, and is it not Oakwood? It's Hines and Lynn. The roundabout's going to be coming in 2023. We're excited to get that project done, but we just got to get those messages out a little bit better. And we acknowledge that. We're proud of the funding that we've been able to generate. I think we shared with the council that in the last 5 years, we've been able to generate an additional $97 million for this community, but we've just never said it. And so we believe that that's our responsibility to go find those funds, but I think it's also our responsibility to share that those things happen. And as Councilmember Gerlich said, we're good at telling people what we need to, that we're vulnerable, but not sharing our story good. So I'm hearing that message as well, loud and clear, that we got to improve on our communication. But I just appreciate the ability to serve. I thank the staff for your vision, the community for allowing us to do that, for coming out tonight. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Comments from council? Mr. Franklin.
I'd just like to echo the thanks for the workshop the work session last Thursday, David. That's I really appreciated that, just the perspective from all of the different supervisors there. Didn't realize I had so many monkeys on my back, but taking care of them. So great session, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next. So thank you.
Well, anybody else? As mayor, I'm going to keep this short because I know that we have executive session after this. So I want to thank you for putting on that meeting. You know, you thanked us for our time and our work, and it was work. But thank you for having the, look, it'd be really easy not to do that. It'd be really easy to just say we're doing great and go on with life. It takes a lot as a leader to stop and say, hey, we can still do better. How do we do that? And so the next day, I went to the animal shelter. I was not dropping off my dog. I was actually trying to drop off my kid. But that's, no. So Nick had a project from school that he was doing Pay It Forward. So he went and donated some money for the animal shelter. But Christina, who we all know and we all love, said it was the best thing that she's experienced as an employee of Republic, was going to that workshop on Thursday, because she said, all this stuff is happening and it's so cool. I'm so happy to be a part of it. And that's the sort of buy-in that brings everybody together.
Yeah.
So it was a great thing. So thank you for that. And that's all I've got tonight, except for, I'm going to have to read a whole lot here, so stick with me here, guys. No further action other than announcing adjournment by the mayor shall take place after an executive session that is scheduled as the last matter on the agenda unless otherwise stated on the agenda or as allowed per RSMO 610.02. Specifically, RSMO 610.021.13, individually identified personnel records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment, except that this exemption shall not apply to the names, positions, salaries, and lengths of service of the officers and employees of public agencies once they are employed as such, and the name of private sources donating or contributing money to the salary of a... Seriously?
Straight from the Sunshine Law.
All right. Contributing money to the salary of a chancellor or president at all public colleges and universities in the state of Missouri and the amount of money contributed by the source. Somebody's playing a prank on me.
No.
All right.
Good job.
I would entertain a motion and a second for adjournment to executive session.
Motion.
Motion. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Updike.
Aye.
Councilmember Poole. Councilmember Poole. Aye.
She's nodding yes.
Okay. Councilmember Self.
Aye.
Councilmember Gerke.
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Aye.
Councilmember Gerlich.
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.